Okay, I think we are going to get started. I'm Cassidy Ellis with SPEER, South Central Partnership for Energy Efficiency as a Resource. And this is our inaugural cities webinar. Some of you on the line may be familiar with SPEER and some of the webinar series that we've done around building codes. So kind of taking a cue from that program, I am kicking off these cities-focused conversations and topics around city energy management and city efficiency. So let's jump right in. Fair warning, because this is my first webinar, forgive any first-time jitters, or hopefully I'll have beginner's luck. Okay. So today we will cover a few topics. We'll do some introductions. I will give you a little bit of background on the program that I run at SPEER called the City Efficiency Leadership Council. Have a few announcements. I will share some background on Senate Bill 898, local government energy reporting. And then our speaker, Saleem will share information about SECO's technical resources for local governments, and then we'll wrap up. So as I mentioned, I'm Cassidy Ellis, Local Governments Program Manager at SPEER. I lead our outreach and education effort around engaging with the public sector around energy management best practices. Saleem is, let me pull up his bio here. Saleem is President of Texas Energy Engineering Services. He has over 25 years of facilities engineering consulting experience. He has BS in mechanical engineering and a master's in industrial engineering, specializing in facilities planning and design, energy management, engineering economics, and project management. Mr. Khan has been lead engineer and project manager for several energy efficient MEP design projects for new construction and renovation. He is a certified commissioning authority and has successfully implemented commissioning projects for functional testing of building systems, energy savings, and comfort improvement. Mr. Khan has been actively involved in SECO programs for over 25 years and leads SECO schools and local government's energy technical local government energy technical assistance project at Cassidy. He specializes in energy assessment, design, and implementation of SECO Lone Star funded energy efficiency projects in existing buildings. He has managed energy and water efficiency improvements for planning to implement with construction costs in excess of $85 million at public sector entities across Texas. He has also experience with serving as a third-party review engineer working on the owner's behalf. He has conducted energy audits at over 1,000 buildings, identifying cost-effective energy measures. He is a member of AE, TEMA, ASHRAE, NSPE, as well as SPEER. Okay. Let me see. Oops. So the City Efficiency Leadership Council is a collaborative network of Texas cities and public entities engaged in resource sharing and peer-to-peer conversations around energy efficiency best practices in the public sector. Many of you on the line have participated in CELC events, which has been a really wonderful experience for me. And anyone else on the line who is interested in learning more about the work that we're doing with cities, my contact information is in the deck, and I would love to talk to you more about how your city or school district or county or water district is managing your energy. A few announcements. So as I mentioned, this is our first webinar, and we will have our next webinar on April 18th with a focus on resiliency and the use of combined heat and power. Just a note about these webinars. I am intentionally trying to vary the content to appeal to folks that are at any point in their energy management program. So if you have an idea for a topic that is more technical, more focused on climate, less more focused on planning efforts, please let me know. I'm looking for good content for these webinars going forward. The May webinar will focus on LED street lighting with one of our longtime ESCO partners, Ameresco. One major announcement that I want everyone on the line to be aware of, our Clean Energy Exchange is a week from Monday, and we are opening up free registration to all members of the public sector. So please get in touch if you are in the Austin area or can be and would like to attend. It's going to be a really exceptional conference, so looking forward to seeing some of you there. And then recordings of these webinars will be made available upon request. We don't want to host too much on our website, and we really want to encourage people to attend in person. So hoping that, but if you do want a recording or someone else is interested in the content, please get in touch and I'll get you a copy of that file. So for my portion, and hopefully this will be fairly quick so that I can pass things over to Saleem for the majority of the content, but I wanted to start by talking about state-mandated local government energy reporting. So I have been in touch with some of you on the line and sent kind of email blasts and communication around Senate Bill 898. So Senate Bill 898 was a bill from the 82nd state legislature in 2011. So this statute has been in place for a number of years. And the requirement of the statute is that political subdivisions, including cities, counties, water districts, and other local government entities in the 42 counties on the map that you can see there, these are 42 counties that are in non-attainment or nearing non-attainment with the Clean Air Act, are required to establish a plan to reduce their electricity consumption by 5% year over year for 10 years, as well as report on your progress towards that goal to the State Energy Conservation Office on an annual basis. Although the statute or some iteration of the statute has been in place for quite a number of years, there is a number of municipalities and communities that have not been submitting updates on your plans, and many who have not established plans. So SPEER's work around this statute is to communicate with the communities throughout the affected counties, to identify barriers, to assist you in the development of the plan, and to hopefully get your report in by the reporting deadline. So what is reported? It is a simple one-page form, front and back, and they are asking for contact information as well as some very high-level electricity data points. Annual consumption of your buildings, street lighting, traffic lighting, water facilities, and wastewater facilities, as well as the square footage of your buildings, gross square footage, and a narrative on the progress of your energy efficiency efforts and your energy conservation efforts. So it's a pretty straightforward form, but it really could take quite a bit of planning and effort within each of your city organizations to consolidate this data. It seems very, very minor to actually put the information on the form, but the effort of gathering the electricity bills, working with your utility to consolidate the data, identifying the extent of the meters in your portfolio, and getting that information rolled up into this report, as you can imagine, can be a very time-consuming process. And ultimately, you're ending up with rolled up numbers that maybe don't tell you very much about how your community is using electricity. So this outreach effort that SPEER is leading is both to help communities with the process of gathering that data and building the capacity to prepare this data, but secondarily to make the data a useful tool for your communities and your energy planning efforts. So just to backtrack here for a second, there are a few key dates for reporting. It is reported, the data is reported on the state's fiscal year. So this upcoming November 1st deadline will report on energy consumption for the period from September 1st, 2018 to August 31st, 2019. And the report is due to SECO by November 2019. The contact information for who you send the report to is on the form. So going back to the resources, as I mentioned, SECO, as well as my program at SPEER, City Efficiency Leadership Council, is here to assist each of your communities in understanding what the requirements of the statute are, building the capacity within your city organization to prepare this data, and actually getting your report filed with the state on time. So I encourage anyone on the line to reach out to me if you are interested, if you're unaware of this report requirement, or if you would like to learn more, please reach out to me at SPEER and I can help navigate all of the different, the process of preparing and submitting for this requirement. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities to leverage the process of preparing this report into a way to enhance your community's energy management. So the work that my program can do with your city is to help identify the barriers within your community, assist with making the data more meaningful to you in terms of evaluating individual buildings, trends, et cetera, and then potentially looking into more granular data in the reporting efforts. Okay, so that's kind of the very high level information about Senate Bill 898. And then I'm going to turn it over to Saleem to walk us through one of the other major technical resources available from SECO that can flow into the effort that I just described. So let me stop sharing here, and I'm going to hopefully seamlessly make Saleem the host. I'm also going to take a look at our questions and hopefully we can get some questions answered for you. Okay, so Saleem, you are the host now.
All right. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and right now we're seeing your, there you go, perfect. You're on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Saleem Khan. I'm with Cassidy Engineering, and we are one of the engineers for the SECO Schools and Local Government Program. And I will be trying to give you an overview of what this program is and what kind of resources are available for those who apply for it, and give you just a taste of what you could expect coming out of this program. So I'm going to give you a very quick overview of the presentation. I'll tell you a little bit about the SECO Technical Assistance Program, what kind of technical assistance are available, then discuss or outline one of the main things that comes out of this program, which is preliminary energy assessments, and we'll go over that quickly, then give you some examples of technical assistance and some case studies where the cities have utilized this service and what kind of benefit they got out of it, outline the benefits of the PEA, and then we'll be free to, if there are any questions, we'll be free to discuss those too. So the SECO program is headed by the Comptroller of Public Accounts. The administrator for this program, or the program manager at SECO, is Stephen Ross, and you can see on the screen his email and his phone number, basically. SECO has a number of programs such as Lone Star and few other which are funding sources, but I will be discussing the SECO Schools and Local Government Technical Assistance Program, which is available to cities, public entities across Texas. So there are 3 engineering firms under contract to SECO, and we are one of them, so to provide this service. Let me backtrack a little bit over here. So one thing to keep in mind is that this is a free technical assistance available to those who apply for it. So there is no cost or no obligation to pay anything if you ask for this service. And how do you get this service? Primarily, it's a one-page document that hopefully you are seeing on the screen. It's called a Technical Assistance Service Request. You put your basic information in there. You just describe what you want to look at, answer a few questions, sign, and turn it into SECO. And that's all that is required, basically, to participate in this program. And this one page is also available at SECO's website, so you can download it and fill it in and turn it in, basically. So again, this is a free technical assistance engineering services that is available to public entities across Texas. So what kind of technical assistance, if you join this program, what kind of technical assistance can you expect or you want to have? So I've outlined a few things and we'll quickly go over them. From time to time, we have assisted with developing energy management policy or a plan, basically, provide assistance with that. We've also been asked to give energy efficient purchasing guidelines. So from time to time, we provide that feedback also. Analysis of current maintenance programs, provide some feedback on code and standards and compliance. We've done that also. Prioritize equipment replacement schedules, develop a kind of a plan where it will give you an idea when do you expect to have some change outs in your equipment or what's the best time frame for that. So we get into those aspects of it. Then we look into the energy efficiency design guidelines for new construction and renovation. So some cities or schools have requested that they are building new schools and new buildings, and they would like to get a feedback or input on energy efficiency design guidelines so they can put that in their standards. So that has been done. Renewable energy analysis, feasibility studies have been done under this program, and water conservation measures have been analyzed and identified. From time to time, we are also asked to provide Energy Star certification. So we have done that for a lot of schools under this program, which is available to schools and cities, but mostly schools have participated in that. The main thing or the main thrust of this program is to do a facilities preliminary energy assessment, also sometimes called an initial assessment, basically. And it's an initial audit, also referred to as initial audit. And I'll go into a little bit more detail of what this is. Also under this program, we have identified funding options such as the SECO Lone Star programs, and other funding options have been discussed. So there's a host of requests that come through for people who participate in this program, but the primary focus of this program and the document that is generated out of it is the preliminary energy audit or the preliminary energy assessment report, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. So before we go too much into it, I'd just like to spend one slide or 1 minute on defining energy audits, as people will be reaching out to you and they may be saying we do this type of audit or that type of audit. So I just want to give an overall definition of what are the type of energy audits that are available. So preliminary energy assessment also is called preliminary energy audit. Some people call it initial energy audit or survey. Some people call it walkthrough survey and assessment. So that's one category. The other category is called detailed energy assessment or analysis. It's a comprehensive energy analysis. In private sector, in ESCO terms, they call it investment grade audit. And in SECO Lone Star terms, which is a funding source available for public entities, it's called Utility Assessment Report. And then ASHRAE calls them Category 1, 2, and 3. So under the SECO Schools and Local Government Program, we are doing preliminary energy assessment. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands what kind of an energy assessment is available under this free program. Usually the detailed energy assessments and other type of assessments has a cost associated with it, that you will be engaging someone directly. But this preliminary energy assessment is a document that will give you a kind of a roadmap of what to expect and what kind of projects you will have. And I'll outline the steps in the preliminary energy assessment to give you a better idea as to what can you expect out of this initial assessment report. So I will very quickly go through the 6 steps or 6 phases of this initial assessment. Primarily, the first thing that's most important, the public entity has to request a service. So that's that 1-page document. When you turn that in, you're all set to go, and we go to the next phase. Then we do a need assessment. So we might have an on-site meeting or a telephone conference to find out what kind of needs that you might have, or what kind of particular area of interest that you want to explore. So we look into that aspect of it. Then we develop a scope and get it internally approved by SECO. So there's a little process over there that we go through that. Once that is done, then we go into the data gathering and site survey mode. So the data gathering is that we get the utility data, electric, gas, and water. And then once we do that, we use those for benchmarking. And then once you do that, then we will facilitate it. We will request you all to facilitate an on-site visit. And typically it is a 1 to 2 day on-site visit that we just need assistance from somebody at the city to be able to give us access to the facilities. And in that process, we look and identify UCRMs. UCRMs stand for Utility Cost Reduction Measures. So we'll be looking at energy efficiency measures as long as water conservation and water efficiency measures, if that was in the scope that was discussed with us. So once that on-site is done, then we take the data and we do some analysis, in-house analysis on it, and we quantify different UCRMs, establish cost for those things, and then also generate potential savings from those projects. So once that is done, then we go into a report format and develop a report which will have your baseline energy use. And I'll give you examples of all of these in the next few slides. We will identify O&M measures, which is operation and maintenance measures. We will identify utility cost reduction implementation measures. If there was a request to look into providing you some feedback on energy management plans, so that will be addressed in there. And then we will outline what are the potential funding options that are available in order to do some of these projects, and those will be discussed in that report. And when the report is developed, then we do a presentation of the report with all stakeholders, and then it is up to the public entity as to what their next step is. The SECO program over there, the local government program, after providing the report, if there are any questions and so forth, they'll be answered, but it is all up to the public entity as to how they proceed with the findings, and different people have different approaches. So the main thing to keep in mind is that once you have this report, you have a very good planning document that will identify what kind of potential energy projects you have, what are the anticipated costs for those things, what kind of savings you could expect from those things. And so you have an initial screening of all the projects, and that way you have a pretty good roadmap, and then you all decide how you all want to proceed, and how soon or can you proceed with some of those recommendations. I will stop right here, and I know this will be a question that will be asked. How long does this whole process take? So it takes anywhere from 45 to 60 days from start to finish, basically. And we try to make it where it is not too much of a burden on people who are requesting this service. So, for example, utility data is a major source that we need to have, and we have ways to actually get an authorization from the public entity and get that information from the utility company directly, or if some cases, if you have a database of your consumption for at least the past 12 months, then you can just share that with us and we use that. So 45 to 60 days if everything works fine. Otherwise, usually it may take long in few instances if there are some specific things that we need to investigate. So just 45 to 60 days is a pretty good time frame to have this report done. Just a quick overview of what kind of consumptions breakdown that you might have. This is from a CBAC data that's from 2003 time frame. Not much has changed basically, but you can see that if you're a school entity, a majority of your energy consumption is associated with HVAC, then lighting, and then other areas. Pretty much the same thing for if you are a public entity, a city, or a county facilities, then you have HVAC, lighting, and the percentages might be different, but in general, they follow the same pattern. One thing to keep in mind is that a lot of cities have got water and wastewater, and water and wastewater is a major energy consuming kind of a area, so that's not reflected in there. We have seen cities, small cities, where water and wastewater reflect around about 70 or 80% of their overall consumption. So that's one area that the SECO local government program also focuses on, and I'll give you some examples in a little while. So gathering the utility data for this program, we need to have at least 12 consecutive months of your utility cost and consumption data. Again, I said if we get an authorization from you, then we can easily get that from the utility service provider. You can also scan invoices if you have them. Nobody does that anymore because you can get it from the utility service provider. And then if you have tracking spreadsheet of software, you can just share that with us. Primarily, we need consumption, which is KWH, demand, which is KW, and a few other things that we could ask for. The natural gas data could be shared if you have that. And if you are wanting us to look at water conservation part of it, then we would be requesting the water utility data also. And in some cases where you are a very large facility, it doesn't happen in schools and local government, but for universities and higher education, usually they will have a chill water or a central plant basically, and then we look at the distribution of that plant, how it supplies energy to different buildings. So variety of ways, but that's the basic data that we need. Two things very important in energy management. One is called, that is used for benchmarking. One is called Energy Utilization Index, EUI, which is the annual energy use per square foot, and it's done in BTUs. So if you've got electricity and you've got gas, so we convert all that in BTUs and say how much of BTUs per square foot per year you're using. So that's an energy utilization index. And the next one is the energy cost index, which is the annual energy cost per square foot. It's very simple. So these are the two performance indices that are traditionally used in energy management. And as a result of this program, by you sharing that data with us, we will be developing this for each of the building or the facility that we are looking at. So once we have the data, I'll just give you a quick overview of what you might expect in the report. So on the screen, you will see on the left side is the energy utilization index, which is the BTUs per square foot per year. And on the right side, you'll see the energy cost index, how much is costing us per square foot per year. So based on the data that we got from you, we generate these baselines, and this become your baseline for our energy analysis portion of it. Once we have the utility data, we also look at how much of a demand you might be using, and we do some peak power draw and demand charges and analysis also to see if there is any opportunity to reduce your demand and to have some savings in that area. One of the other things that we have an internal tool, analysis tool, that based on utility data, we can develop what they call a load factor, and a load factor primarily tell us the consistency of facility usage. So for example, if you are 8 to 5 and if we see a high load factor, then that kind of tells us there might be things staying on in after hours and so on and so forth. So that's some of the data analysis that just comes out of the utility data that you provided to us, and that analysis is part of that preliminary energy assessment report. The other piece that when a request is made is to develop an energy management plan. So we would have a discussion with you all, and then we will have a process in which we go through, and some of the steps are identified over here. So once you make a commitment, then we assess performance and set goals. So basically, we'll have the benchmarking data and a few other things done and know what your needs are, how you operate the facilities. Then we create an action plan, have some sort of description of an implementation plan. We'll give you some ideas how you can evaluate progress and then recognize achievements. And it's the important thing to keep in mind is that energy management plan is not a one-time activity. Once you have the initial plan done, over a year or two, that you all need to reevaluate and see what adjustments could be made. So this service is available as a part of the SECO Schools and Local Government Technical Assistance Program. So it's an important, document that if you have, it gives you good directions on how to move forward on some of these things. So during the on-site survey, as I mentioned, the second step in the PEA is that we do an on-site survey. So very quick, basically going to the facilities, but as a result of that, we may be able to identify low cost, no cost measures, which actually may not be costing you to do anything. Just a few changes might result in some savings. We look at routine maintenance practices, equipment scheduling, and what kind of set points you have, temperature set points, outside air set points, and so forth, and review of operational procedures review and provide some feedback on that. To give you just a few examples, I've got a lot of pictures over here. So when we are walking through the facilities, we might find different things. So for example, on the top left is where, there's an outside wall pack that's staying on, and usually that is a result of that photocell wasn't working. So we may identify, you fix the photocell, you take care of that. We also use from time to time thermal imaging, and the right side over there on the screen is an example where we are looking at chill water and hot water that was on the roof basically, and we are looking at where the potential energy losses are. And we see this a lot where people have ordered brand new equipment, but since there was not an option to have a hail guard, brand new equipment, the first sign of hail, it had a damage over there. So when we look at that, we provide some feedback that you all could give your purchasing people to make sure that they have that option in there so that this won't happen. So we also look at cooling towers, we look at blowdowns and variety of different things. Basically, look at, if you're going through a computer lab or a facility and you see a lot of the computers are on, then we have some programs or recommendation how to switch them off. Vending machines have some requirements mandated, and we just provide some feedback over there. These are usually no cost kind of measures that you could implement and which will result in savings. A lot of time we see, that there is a piece of equipment that's got all the technology, but it's running in hand position, which means that all the controls have been overridden. So if we find those things, then we will point those out, and then you all could take appropriate action, find out why is it in that position, and then take steps to fix it. Again, these are examples of low cost, no cost measures. Part of this program, the one on the left side was a water and wastewater facility. So we look at the inventory, see how old the equipment is, take some basic information, and then provide some recommendation on what could possibly be done or what would be a good replacement time for that. So these are all some of the things that we are looking through in the walkthrough. From time to time, this may be a very busy photo over there, but from time to time, we've been asked to do what we call utility meter mapping. So as a result of that, if you've got a bunch of facilities, new additions and so forth, we like to kind of identify which meter is serving which portion of the building. And then sometimes from this process, well, the important thing is that we can identify which meter is serving which portion, and that way you can track it. But in some cases, we have also found out that there were a couple of places where the meter is still there, but it was a portable building or something else, basically, that's no longer there. So you don't need that meter, and then they could be taken off. So from time to time, we've done meter mapping as part of the SECO local government program. And then we have been asked to look at the PV system application. So we have done analysis on what size of PV systems, photovoltaic system could be installed, how much roof space you have, are there any shadings, and so on and so forth. And we've also done solar thermal kind of projects also analysis, in which mostly you look at if you could use solar energy to do the heating, and we look at that aspect of it, find venues, and we found it to be, if you've got an indoor pool, solar thermal pool heating is a very good option actually to consider. So those analyses will be part of that program if that was included in the scope. Then again, we look at if you've got energy management control systems, we'll take a quick snapshot of your energy management control systems and then identify simple measures that you could actually go and take and fix those things. So that's an example of that. And then we have also have some data loggers. So for example, this was in one of the cities that requested some service. So we were able to put short time data loggers to look at temperature, humidity, and then look at what kind of, what were the lighting operations and so on and so forth. So we have done that and then provided a report back in which they could take corrective actions to actually address those kind of things. So these were just some of the examples of on-site work. The next 2 or 3 slides are important and interesting that I want to just quickly go over. So we have identified, or we will be identified, typical measures with potential paybacks. In the years, how much your investment will pay back. So we have divided in 2 categories: one the building systems, and the other one is the water wastewater. So I'll give you some examples. So we discussed low cost, energy efficient lighting, LED lighting conversion, HVAC retrofits, insulation, commissioning, water conservation measures, solar thermal pool heating, solar PV arrays. So you see on the right side, there are different, payback periods, okay? It will pay back in 8 years, it will pay back in 1 year. The important thing to keep in mind is that the initial assessment will go and quantify that more specifically. So it's going to say, based on your need, your facility, and your condition, your payback is 6 years, 5 years, 2 years, or 1 year, whatever it is. So that's important, and you will have that piece of information. The other thing to keep in mind is that you have got different operating hours, you've got different site conditions. So the cost of implementing some of those measures vary from one site to another. So all that is taken into account when doing the cost and savings analysis, and that's why usually there's a typical range of paybacks, and then you'll fall somewhere in between over there. So part of the building systems is cooling tower replacements, variable air volume conversion, thermal energy storage systems. So lately we've been looking at quite a few of application of those and analysis for that. slightly longer term paybacks, but still viable projects. Then energy management control system upgrades. If you have pneumatic systems and you want to look at, I need to go to a full DDC, or I don't have any energy management control system, what will be the cost and savings if I do that? And we from time to time look at window film and steam system improvements, not very common nowadays, and then power factor improvement, which does not have any direct energy savings, but you could have cost savings by just looking at that kind of a measure. So those are the typical things with paybacks and so forth. Those will be analyzed under this PEA and then giving you a very specific answers based on the facilities that we looked at. So the other part of it is, if you all remember, I mentioned that the water, wastewater, especially for the cities, is a very major component. So we look at all these different technologies and application of these things for water and wastewater treatment plants, and then we will be doing the analysis and providing you feedback. So we have looked at city mains, leak sensing technology applications, smart meter applications, variable frequency drives, dissolved oxygen controls, high efficiency blower applications. But if that was part of the scope, then that will be analyzed and you will be provided with the recommendations for the water and wastewater treatment plants also. Just wanted to give you some example over here. So the left side is, I call it Envision Transformation. You had nothing on that side, and all of a sudden you've got a 60-foot tank which has a thermal storage. So some of those things needs to be visualized, and when you're placing some of this equipment, it's important to kind of discuss what the feasibility of placing that equipment at that site and what kind of implications you might have other than that energy saving implication. Then on the top, on the right side, you see with some old boilers and so forth, and they were converted to brand new systems. So these are just some examples of capital investment examples that might be identified. I'm going to give a very quick overview of what you can expect in the PEA report, a table of contents with different items identified, and all of these items are dedicated to provide you specific, are very specific to your facility, basically. So you will see funding options, you will see facility description, you will see energy accounting, utility rate analysis, O&M recommendations, and cost savings measures, and so on and so forth. And then in the appendices, we will have all the backup that was used to generate this report, basically. So you will see some, the utility data backup and so on and so forth in the appendices. So typically these reports are anywhere from 10, 20 pages to 50, 60 pages. With very specific information specifically for your site, the site that you selected. I'm going to quickly go over some case studies and just to give you some idea on how different cities have used this PEA and what was the side benefits of having this done. So the most recent one is the city of Austin in 2018 requested that we do an analysis of a couple of their facilities. Basically, it was close to, I think, 1.7 or 2 million square feet of their different facilities. So we were able to identify $4.7 million worth of energy efficiency upgrade projects with the MMBTU is just a BTU savings estimated out of it, with estimated cost savings of close to $415,000 a year with a payback of 11.5 years. And the type of projects were identified were LED retrofits, exterior LED retrofit, chiller replacements, AHU fan, VFDs, hydronic pumps, existing building retro commissioning. So the side benefit of this was that they found out that there was a Bloomberg grant for the cities available if you have an initial assessment done. So they had this report already in place. They were able to take that report, and my understanding is that the city is looking at doing some of these projects basically that were identified in the initial assessment, and they will be utilizing some of the grant funds to do these projects. So sometimes they did not know that there would be grant down the line, but they have the report done. Sometimes it's just a matter of timing, but the information was there and they were able to utilize it. Another example that I'll give you, and in 2015, New Braunfels Utilities actually requested that we look at their facilities, in which we identified close to $9.7 million worth of projects with a payback of 6.6 years. And this was a lot of it had to do with the water savings measures and so forth, and annual utility savings of around about 1.5 million. So we looked at cost to fine bubble diffusion, installation of water, wastewater treatment plant, dissolved oxygen sensors, install high efficiency variable speed turbofan blowers. And one of the main things what they had around about 30,000 residential accounts, 5/8 meter, and we did some statistical analysis and provide them recommendation for change out and cost and savings associated with those meter change out to the modern meters basically. And my understanding is that they have actually done 70 to 75 to 80% of those projects already. They had identified their own funding source for that and have successfully implemented that. And we'd also given them some recommendation on street light conversion to LED, which they were able to do on their own over a period of time. So again, this meter conversion was a major project over there, and they took it upon themselves and have completed around about 80% of it, is my understanding. So a lot of time, if you have done a report that is more than 2 years old, you do have the option to come back and say, can you all look at our facilities again? So in 2019, New Braunfels Utilities requested that we come and look at their facilities again. So this time we looked at some of their facilities and identified some additional projects in some of their facilities that could be used to have some energy savings and so forth. So the important thing to keep in mind is that you could ask for a second study after at least after 2 years, basically, to look at some of your other buildings that you may not have looked at before. Another case study, which I'm very proud of, was the city of San Marcos. They had requested an initial energy assessment back in 2008. It was a small scale study, but soon after that, in 2009, if you all remember, there were ERA funds, which was the stimulus grant funds for energy efficiency, introduced. And since they had an initial assessment done, they were able to put a request over there and get some funding for doing an investment grade audit from DOE grant funding, basically. So as a result of that initial assessment that was done, they were able to secure a grant for funding a detailed energy assessment, which is it's got cost associated with it. And then as a part of that project, when detailed energy assessment was done, it was done based on the Lone Star guidelines, which is a state funding source from SECO that is available at 2% interest. And so that was identified as that was their interest to secure that funding. And they were able to secure $1.9 million of funding with annual savings of $221,000 approximately, in payback of 8.9 years. The projects that were identified were motion sensors installations in the building, lighting retrofit, HVAC replacement, control upgrade, solar thermal pool heating on their activity center, water conservation measures. We were able to identify and implement irrigation system upgrades basically over there for landscaping. So that was done. And then a project was done for water, wastewater, high efficiency blower, and some controls associated with it. So that is another example of where a city that had done an initial assessment was able to build up on it over the years. You can see it didn't happen overnight, so sometimes these things take a long time. And this project, if I recall, was completed around about in 2014, and when it went through all these phases. So I would like to just give you a quick overview of what are the benefits of participating in this program and having this report done. You will have a valuable planning tool. You will have a budgeting tool that will give you an idea what the expected cost for doing some of those projects are. you will have a baseline developed for it. From there onward, you can do energy tracking if you want. We will prioritize investments for you with cost and paybacks. You will be looking at some low cost, no cost measures. There might be specific technical assistance. Sometimes people have said, I've got an issue in this area, I got a humidity problem, I got a temperature problem. So we look and investigate those options, and then we also look at providing you some information on funding options that you could use to move forward if that's what you want to do. And really, it's a roadmap to utility cost savings. So that's the benefit of participating in this program. And now on the screen, you should see my name and contact information, and also Stephen Ross, who's the program manager at SECO for this, his name, contact information, and so forth. And with this, I think I'm at the end of my slides over here.
Thank you, Saleem. Yeah, lots of really great information. So for those on the webcast, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So if you just kind of cursor down, it's a Q&A box. So one question that we have that's popped up is, Saleem, can you kind of, do you have an example of how a project went from the PEA process through Lone Star, and maybe kind of give a little high-level information on Lone Star?
Yes, sure. So, so the city of San Marcos is a perfect example for that. They had done an initial assessment of the few buildings. Then they got the grant. Actually, since they had an assessment done, it's just a matter of timing over there. And as a result of that, a detailed energy assessment was done, and the funds were secured from the Lone Star program. Basically, they went through the design and implementation phase. They used variety of options that were available to them. They went through an interlocal agreement to do certain projects. They went to a competitive bids on some of the projects, and then one or two projects did them on themselves. So from start to finish, it was a couple of years basically. But that is one example of a city where it had gone through all phases from PEA to the implementation phase. So the Lone Star funding, to keep in mind, is that it's a 2% interest rate basically that they have. It is designed where you pay out of your savings basically, and SECO does their independent third-party review for all the detailed assessments that are done to make sure there is a quality control, and there is no cost for that part of it for people or public entities that are actually borrowing this money. So there's a quality control aspect of it, and this is a good example of where it went from initial assessment to all the way through. And recently they've been requested, they'll be looking at some other options and other buildings basically right now. So did I answer you, Cassidy?
Yeah, that was great. Do we have any other questions? Okay. What are the best steps for energy activists or concerned citizens to apply for SECO's technical assistance to raise awareness for public utility boards or university boards? So just to clarify, I think the question has to do with how can citizens encourage your local public entities to pursue technical assistance? Because just to clarify, the PEAs are, private citizens can't apply for them, but Saleem, do you have any recommendations or examples of maybe community members encouraging their communities to pursue these technical resources to encourage energy management in their cities?
Sure. So one thing I just want to clear up is that the SECO's technical assistance services, the schools and local government are specifically only designed for public entities and focused on public entities basically. But from time to time, we have seen where citizens have found out about this program and they have brought it up to their representatives or the administrators and made them aware of it. There is an outreach from this program that goes to a lot of the cities and counties and the school districts, and we get some participation from that also. But few of the times where public, citizens have found out something about it, they have told their administrators, and then they reach out to. It has to come through a public entity. The request has to come through a public entity. We don't have means of actually engaging with the citizens as per se. So.
Absolutely, and I have found in my outreach to cities that I've heard repeatedly that squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that approaching an energy management program or planning around energy management sometimes is deprioritized or does not have the political will of leadership. So community members are a very important factor in encouraging your leadership, your city leadership, to invest and focus time and energy in the cost savings and responsible use of taxpayers' dollars for the energy management in your community. So thank you for bringing up that side of the conversation. Ryan, I saw that you were raising your hands, but we are at time. I will distribute these slides to folks that have joined us today. There will also be a survey that will go out and I ask and encourage all of you to provide feedback, provide ideas for content you'd like to see in the future, and continue to join us and ask good questions and participate. So thank you everyone for your time today, and I hope to connect with you all more in the future. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.